That's love. We don't do what you want. That's love. Love ain't nobody's. That's love. We won't pay any mind. That's love.
Didn't I?
About what?
That you might regret making me go to the governor's party.
Harolyn Suzanne Nicholas was born on 2nd September 1943 in Los Angeles, California, to Dorothy Jean Dandridge and Harold Lloyd Nicholas. They married on 6th September 1942. They met at the Cotton Club in Harlem in 1938, where Dorothy performed as part of the Dandridge Sisters trio, while Harold dazzled audiences with his acrobatic tap routines alongside his brother Fayed. Now, the marriage was turbulent from the start, marked by Harold's infidelity and inattentiveness. Circumstances of Harolyn's birth were complicated. Dorothy went into labor while Harold was out playing golf. He dropped her off at her sister-in-law's earlier and took the car, leaving Dorothy without immediate transportation to the hospital. Now determined to wait for him, Dorothy delayed seeking medical help, which prolonged the labor. When she arrived at the hospital eventually, doctors used forceps to assist in the delivery due to the extended ordeal. This, combined with the possible oxygen deprivation during birth, resulted in Harolyn suffering from cerebral anoxia, a form of brain damage that severely impaired her developmental and cognitive abilities. Cerebral anoxia occurs when the brain is deprived of oxygen, leading to permanent neurological damage, including speech issues, recognition, and motor skills. At first, Harolyn appeared to be a healthy infant. Her parents held high hopes for their daughter. However, by the age of 2, it became evident that Harolyn was not meeting developmental milestones. So, she did not speak, failed to recognize her parents or familiar faces. Doctors diagnosed her with severe brain damage, advising Dorothy that Harolyn would require lifelong care, suggesting she gives her up and have another. Dorothy blamed herself for the delay in getting to the hospital, a remorse that haunted her until her death. Now, Harolyn required constant supervision and care. As a single mother, after Harold abandoned them around 1948, Dorothy and Harold's divorce was finalized in October of 1951. She had to bear the full financial and emotional burden of everything. Harold refused to contribute to Harolyn's care, viewing her disability as a burden and prioritizing his career and personal life. He actually went on to remarry twice and have another child, half-brother to Harolyn, Melissa Nicholas, who was born in 1958, but showed little interest in Harolyn. Meanwhile, Dorothy struggled to balance her rising stardom. She starred in films like Island in the Sun, 1957, and performing at venues like the Apollo Theater, with the demands of raising a disabled child. She employed in-home caretakers while on the road, but issues arose, including reports of mistreatment or neglect by some caregivers, adding to her stress. Financially, Harolyn's needs were exorbitant. Dorothy's career hampered by racism. Dorothy was often typecast. Not only Dorothy, but a lot of black actresses, black actors, black entertainers basically, were often typecast, but in this case now film, she was often typecast or denied roles. She could not always cover the costs due to this, because now you're not getting the type of roles you'd like to, and perhaps you have to settle for roles that are there, and getting those roles themselves was difficult. So in 1963 appearance of the Mike Douglas Show, she shared about Harolyn publicly for the first time, revealing the depth of her guilt. You could never convince her she was not at fault. Despite the challenges, Dorothy doted on Harolyn. She also advocated for mental health causes, recording radio messages for the Joseph P. Kennedy Jr. Foundation to support families with disabled children. By the early 1950s, the strain proved overwhelming. Dorothy placed Harolyn in private care facilities, believing it was the best option for her daughter's safety and her own ability to work. However, these arrangements were unstable. After Dorothy's second divorce from hotel owner Jack Dennison in 1962 and her bankruptcy in 1963, This was heightened by theft from managers and racism in Hollywood. The private caretakers brought Harolyn back to Dorothy after payments lapsed. In a heartbreaking decision, Dorothy institutionalized Harolyn at Camarillo State Mental Hospital in 1963. This move forced Dorothy to sell her Hollywood home and contributed to her emotional breakdown. Now, specific details about Harolyn's experience at Camarillo are scarce due to privacy laws and the era's limited records. Now, Dorothy's death on September 8, 1965, at age 42, from a pulmonary embolism, possibly linked to an overdose of antidepressants amid depression, left Harolyn, then 22 years, entirely in state care. Because you have to remember, Harold was not there for her anymore. Yeah, and now Dorothy at this point had unfortunately passed away. Yeah, but how about, let's say, the siblings? Perhaps they weren't in contact, unfortunately, too. So no family members, including Harold, who died in 2000, or have siblings, appear to have maintained contact or visited her regularly. Harolyn's life post-1965 remains largely undocumented, a reflection of the era's stigma around disability and institutionalization. Efforts to locate her, such as those by Halle Berry and producer Loretta Devine during the filming of the 1999 HBO biopic Introducing Dorothy Dandridge, were unsuccessful. Loretta noted that the institution had burned down years earlier and Harolyn's whereabouts were unknown. Rumors circulated about name changes or relocations within the system, making her lost even to those who cared. Harolyn spent the remaining decades living a quiet, isolated life without the fame or support that her parents had. She outlived both her parents and her half-brother Melee, who died in 2003, the same year as Harolyn, but now Harolyn died later on. The exact date, location, and cause of death are not publicly detailed, consistent with privacy protections for institutionalized individuals. No obituaries or public announcements marked her passing, underscoring the invisibility of her life. Her story serves as a poignant footnote to her mother's trailblazing legacy and a stark reminder of the intersections of disability, race, and gender. Today, Harolyn is remembered through biographies, documentaries such as the 1999 HBO film, and online discussions that humanize her as more than a tragic figure. Her life underscores the need for better support for disabled individuals, especially in marginalized communities, and has inspired reflections on ableism in Hollywood's golden age.